Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Seahawks fans, hello and welcome back to the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, here with Keith Myers. Win or lose, Keith, we're here every week, and so this will be for a difficult at first show, I would imagine, as we talk. It's somewhat cathartic. We'll get over it, and we'll move on to next week's opponent, the 49ers, but we're here for all of it. So what do you got for me this week?
A lot of frustration. I mean, this was a game in which it felt like the Seahawks felt like they had it won and didn't need to worry about it, and then just slopped away a win that they should have had. And they had zero business losing the game to Arizona. They none whatsoever. It was just
no, they came out ready to go. I mean, that first half was really pretty awesome. I mean, we kind of gave them a little bit of a 3 points right at the end, right before the half, to kind of make it a little tighter, but it was getting to be a blowout. The Seahawks had a ton of offense in the first half. I think it was 27 points and 377 yards. We kind of let them creep back up in there and make it a 10-point game at halftime, and then it just seemed like it slowly slid away at that point, even though we were still scoring, making some good plays, but giving up a lot of stuff, a lot of offense to Arizona. Critical errors, mistakes, turnovers bit them in the end, and they were able to catch up and surpass the point total at the very, very end. Up until that point, they'd never had a lead until the very final field goal was kicked in overtime. So it's just one of those deals. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to take.
You have a situation where the game was tied at 0-0, and then the Seahawks led the entire game after that until the field goal was kicked to send the game to overtime. That was the only other tie other than 0-0, and they still lost. You know what I mean? Like they gave Arizona way too many chances to come back. That, quite frankly, you
deserve to lose at that point. When you don't take care of business to get the job done.
They're the better team. Right. The Seahawks were the better team, and they just slopped. They were so super sloppy, and they just slopped away a should have been definite win, and they didn't deserve to win because they just made way too many mistakes and a lot of just silliness.
Yeah, well, shoulda, coulda, wouldas. The Seahawks are 5-1 instead of 6-0. That's okay. We're still in the driver's seat in the division at 5-1. Arizona and the Rams are 5-2. The 49ers are 4-3 after that. This division is crazy. And you take a look at the DVOA rankings that just came out. All four division teams are in the top 11 in the DVOA rankings league-wide. So it's a crazy division. It's not going to get any easier. Up next, we talked about the 49ers come into the Clank to take on Seattle. That's this coming Sunday's game. But first, we just got a lot to talk about. Let's just get this thing out of our system. And, there's some good stuff, too. There's some really good stuff. Obviously, some not so good things. The defense is historically bad. It's just really hard to kind of come up with adjectives on just how bad it really is, Keith. But nonetheless, we're still looking decent overall. 5-1 record. The offense is still fairly prolific. The defense, I just don't know what we're going to do about pass rush. We had another one kind of get away, another opportunity maybe to help a little bit. Dallas kind of put forth Everson Griffin on the trading block, and he quickly went to the Detroit Lions this afternoon for a conditional sixth round pick, and a remaining picking up his salary, which would have been about a $3 million pickup for the remainder of the year. Something like that, anything would have just infused a little bit of energy and liveliness into that defensive line for Seattle, but we missed out on that one. Not sure what to make of it. We do have, looks like Snacks Harrison returning in the middle of that defensive line, possibly this week. And I'm thinking that maybe that helps a little bit, at least take some pressure off Reed. And it also takes some pressure off some of those defensive ends to be able to be more active and effective on the outside edge. That's all I got. I mean,
yeah, the Seahawks released Rush to activate Harrison. So the expectation at this point is he will be playing.
Yes.
He's now on the active roster. He's been activated. He's ready to go. So
there you go. So the really disappointing, and we've been talking about this, and we've been talking about this since February, and so is Pete Carroll. The defensive line, the pass rush is the most important thing to fix compared to last year. Last year we had the same problem. We're even worse this year, statistically. Seattle's defense had 0 sacks, 0 QB hits on 48 pass attempts by Kyler Murray in essentially 5 quarters, and allowed Murray to complete 34 of 48 for 427 total yards, including some rushing, 4 total TDs. It's, it is what it is. Now, consequentially, our offense was just as prolific as they were, and Arizona was a pretty decent defense coming into this game, ranked 8th overall DVOA. Seattle had 33 first downs, 572 yards of total offense, both ranked 3rd all-time in franchise history. That still wasn't enough, especially with the 3 turnovers that Russell had, uncharacteristic, yet he had them. All 3 of those interceptions were perplexing in that he just didn't see what the defense was doing. There was one interception where he just didn't literally throw it to anybody, and I was confused.
The one that is now famous for DK Metcalf,
that was amazing.
Running down, I mean, he was a full 10 yards behind.
We got to talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Ran him down. Buda Baker was gone down the sidelines. And Metcalf was at least 10 yards behind him, caught him from behind, kept him out, and then they ended up not getting points off of it.
Terrific.
So that was great.
And then we went down and we scored after that.
And that was just a terrible read, terrible throw, terrible decision, everything on by Russell Wilson on that one. The other 2 plays, they were bad.
It was a deal killer. I mean, it was a game ender, the last one.
Well, the second one, it looked like Wilson was just trying to throw it away, and kept it in bounds a little closer than he thought he had, and player was able to get the interception, keep their feet in bounds. It looked like Wilson was just trying to throw the ball down there and throw it away, get it.
You mean the one that was in the end zone?
Yeah, and just trying to get the ball down near a player so he doesn't get called for intentional grounding or anything stupid like that. So he was just throwing out there, and he just left it in bounds, which is just dumb.
And that last one, that was a kind of a sneaky good play by their rookie Simmons, who was quickly dropped back into coverage after being at the line of scrimmage. I just don't think Russell Wilson saw him, and I think he thought Lockett was breaking one way or recognized a read.
It was so what I went back and watched this play multiple times from different angles, watched the L22, and Wilson called a hot read expecting the blitz and wanted David Moore to cut off his route as a slant rather than
it's a big
taking
chance
it up
to
the
take
field.
at that point in the game.
And it's the hot route. That's what the offense is. You come up there, you see the blitz, it's a hot route. It should be automatic, and David Moore didn't cut his route off.
I know, but there were three guys in coverage on that situation. Even though it might have been a hot route, he was going to throw it into 3-man coverage in that situation.
They were playing as zone, and the Seahawks had 3 guys over there. It's not like he was throwing it into triple coverage. He was throwing it into a spot where, now, he didn't see Simmons drop back. And, but even if Moore cuts his route off the way he's supposed to in that situation, it's at least a the two players collide with each other at the ball type of situation and not an easy pick. And so I'm having watched that as many times as I have and seeing what he does at the line of scrimmage, the motions that he makes, and then where he throws the ball. His third step, like, he's a 3-step drop. His foot's barely touching the ground when that ball is coming out. He had, this was a call that was made at the line of scrimmage. He was throwing the slant right there, and he threw it to someone who didn't run a slant. And honestly, I having watched all of it as much as I can and everything. If that's not on David Moore, then I don't know, because
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Absolutely is a guy that ran the wrong
Listen,
route.
Not all these picks are going to be completely 100% on Russell Wilson, obviously. And thank you for your duty and service to your country for watching that over and over again. I could not. I was just I was going off memory, so I thought it was Lockett, but you're right. It was David Moore in that situation. It is perplexing, and there was a couple other situations, the Schottenheimer decision, maybe it was Russell Wilson changing out of a play, 3rd and 2 on the final drive in regulation. All we needed was to pick up that first down, game over. It comes up short. They run the ball. Lewis makes a mistake and blocks to the inside instead of an outside zone read block. And him and Posick collide a little bit in the middle and enabled the defensive end to come down and make that stop for no gain on that. And we end up punting, and they end up coming down and tying the game up. So it's just it took a lot of different things in this game to come together to allow the Arizona Cardinals to win this game and Seattle to kill their chances. It wasn't just the turnovers. You could point to Benson Mayo as 15-yard and sportsmanlike call on their field goal attempt that then they took the points off the board, got the first down, went down and scored the touchdown on a couple of plays later. That was killer.
That was killer. Or even the drive before that when the Seahawks had on 3rd down had gotten off the field and they called Bobby Wagner for a 15-yard personal foul
unnecessary
penalty
roughness, which was just bullshit. I mean, I'm sorry.
For literally doing nothing. Right.
He rubbed the tight end after the tight end dropped the ball, but Wagner, when he initiated that forward motion towards the tight end, didn't know if he was going to catch it at that point. He had to complete that motion.
It hit the guy in the hands, and Wilson hit him after the ball got there, and then. Yeah. Wagner. And then pulled up and stopped and made sure that he didn't, kill the guy.
Right. Didn't drive him into the ground or anything. This was just a hit on his shoulder pads, essentially. And
right after a guy touched the ball.
I thought that was completely. And that kept that drive going. They went down and scored a touchdown after that.
Yeah. It was a 3rd down. It would have been 4th down and long. They'd gotten off the field. They'd done their job. And instead, they got to continue, and it became a touchdown. And then the next time they got the ball, you've got they got him stopped. They got him kicking a field goal, and they missed it. And they made that one. But Benson Mayo, with
I don't even
just
understand
a dumb thing. I mean, honestly, it's kind of a questionable call. Because they're saying he, jumped over the line, and I'd
say he jumped through and got caught, kind
of. He went between guys, but he was
and ended up jumping onto somebody's, back and rolling over them.
Yeah,
but it wasn't purposeful. It just happened. He put himself into that situation, though.
Well, this isn't a situation like with Cam or even when Bobby Wagner, where they both hopped the line and did the hurdle and did all of that. This was a situation where there was there's traffic, there's mess there, and he chose to jump in order to get kind of between and over someone, and ends up kind of landing on someone's back. But he wasn't trying to hurdle the line. He wasn't doing the stuff that was going to break, that was like breaking the rules. Like, it was just not something that needed to be called. I mean, it was kind of dumb that he put himself in that situation because you got to know the rule. But at the same time, even if he knew the rule, it's not like a great example of it in any way. Like that's not what the rule is
I didn't
designed to
think
stop
that
from happening or
warranted a
anything.
15-yard penalty in a critical situation in the game.
It didn't warrant a penalty.
It would have warranted an
critical
offsides
situation.
possibly, but that was a 5-yard penalty, and
Was
that
he
would
offsides?
have continued the field goal attempt. It
Yeah.
would not have given
I
them
mean,
a
they
first
would've-
down to continue the drive and go down and score a touchdown.
Yeah, because it was 4th and 13.
Right.
If he was offsides and you give him 5 yards, it's still 4th and 8. They wouldn't have taken the points off the board. It would have been a field goal, and that would have been fine.
Yeah, because they called 2 penalties on him on that play. Offsides.
They called the offsides and the other one, and the leveraging.
Unsportsmanlike. Yeah. So let's talk about something good.
Yeah.
Tyler Lockett had an amazing day. Now he had a few drops here and there. I think he was targeted 20 times, had 15 of those were receptions, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Only player with those stat lines, 3 in history. Tyler Lockett, 15, 203. Jimmy Smith, 15, 291 and 3 touchdowns. And Steve Largent, clear back from like 1987 or something like that. 15, 261 and 3 touchdowns. That puts him in pretty amazing company there. Anyone, I think, some sort of offensive player of the week award for that performance as well. The first play, the very first play from scrimmage was that one-handed grab. I don't even know how he did it. He legit caught it one-handed all the way to the ground and tucked and rolled and still didn't put the other hand on that ball. It was unreal. But I tell you what, though, Keith, if you're going to depend on this defense to get a stop for you, you're just going to be disappointed. And so that's where you got really disappointed on that 3rd and 2 run call that maybe you should put the ball in Russell Wilson's hand. Now, I get the fact that they ran off major clock time by running the ball there and having the clock not being able to be stopped, but they still gave the ball back to Kyler Murray and company with 52 seconds left on the clock, and they ended up getting the job done. And that's where we're at with this defense. It's just one of those things where you're literally going to depend on Russell Wilson to have a pretty stellar week in, week out. He's not going to throw 3 interceptions every week to win games for you. And that's a pretty good formula for winning. But it also can get you into trouble if you're not perfect. So I think that's what we saw for the most part. Anything else that stood out for you? The only other thing that kind of stood out for me was the very first Arizona drive. They went 3 and out, and Quentin Dunbar reads the screen in the flat and tackles for a 4-yard loss. I thought Quentin Dunbar had a pretty decent game among a whole bunch of crap to look at on the defensive backfield side of the ball.
Yeah, he had a drive where he just kind of got eaten alive. Boom, 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 touchdown against him. But overall, he played pretty well. He was, doing. He did some great stuff, and then he had some good reads. He's a good tackler. I mean, I can see exactly why they.
He can be a good tackler. He also can can kind of throw his body in there and miss tackles too. So.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why he is. He's a guy that they like, and he did some good things. I mean, the secondary as a whole was pretty bad. Griffin went out with a concussion after playing fairly mediocre football and was replaced by Flowers, who didn't play well. And
Flowers was horrible. God, he got just torched on one play where Hopkins completely beat him, and Kyler Murray wasn't able to get Hopkins the ball, and it fell incomplete. But if Hopkins would have gotten the ball, that would have been a 75-yard touchdown. And
that was an easy touchdown with a better pass.
Yeah, it was just crazy. It's but Seattle had some, like you mentioned, the 4 and out after the Budda Baker return interception that was inside the 10-yard line for Seattle. I thought that play Jordan Brooks made to force the 4th down with the nice speed coming all the way across the field to make the tackle for no gain against Kyler Murray against the sideline was hopeful look at a player that looks to be a really good addition into the future, but still rookie making some mistakes, really only his second start, quote unquote, of the year to come in and take significant snaps. Griffin on the edge, Keem Griffin, I just don't know. He just looked out of place a few different times, didn't really make a play. He had 49 snaps or something like that. His stat line was 1 tackle.
A lot of times they were, at least in the second half, they weren't rushing him.
I know.
They were asking him to spy.
Yeah.
And as much as like he is physically built to do that against a guy like Kyler Murray, he wasn't just able to spy, because whenever Murray would start to run, there would be a guard or a center in Griffin's face. And, that's not how that's designed, right? It's designed so that way, if Murray starts to run, they've got someone, there to tackle him and not give up a big yard. It isn't set up for him to take on blocks. He shouldn't be taking on blocks. It's a pass play. But yet that was how it worked out. And so that was kind of frustrating that they didn't adapt better to that. So yeah, I mean, I like
where do you place
what I saw from
where
Brooks.
do you place the blame most for this thing? Like, if you were to rank the top 4 things that went wrong that led to the end result, how would you rank those?
I would say, like, as far as on-field things, or just overall, because overall, I would put just continued mediocrity out of Ken Norton Jr. As the first one. I just don't think he is putting together a defense that's going to be competitive. I would say the injury to Chris Carson fits up there.
After Chris
pretty
did
high.
get hurt, though, I thought Carlos Hyde had that nice 22-yard touchdown run around the outside edge. But other than that was about it.
He played pretty well, but then he was the guy who got the ball and got tackled on that third down play. And there's just something, Carson's the guy who breaks tackles more. And at least from what I've seen, what I saw in this game was Carson was running really hard and really well until his injury.
Yeah,
and then once he got hurt and Hyde became, the primary guy, the running game just wasn't as good. I mean, it was good at times, but it wasn't as good overall. And I just felt that maybe it's a shoulder injury, because that's still bothering him. But he just didn't break tackles in the same way, and they really needed him to break a tackle here or there, and he didn't. So I put the Carson injury up there as probably the second one. The just dumb plays by or that play by Mayoa that killed the team, and then Wilson's interceptions, because even though I'll go to bat for him on the last one and say that it was at least 75% on David Moore, the other 2 are all on Wilson. He just didn't make the right read and the right throw on the first one, and didn't get the ball out of bounds on the second one. So you just can't do that. As a superstar quarterback, you can't make those kind of mistakes, and he did. So, and I think honestly, there's just so much that's just.
I just think that too. You're honestly seeing. I mean, when you go an entire game without a quarterback hit or a sack against a team like Arizona, that's going to cause significant problems. Not only just by virtue of not getting any pressure, but you're putting your secondary at a huge disadvantage by allowing a quarterback to have maximum time for, 2, 3, 4 reads, and just being able to throw the ball all over the place. And granted, Kyler Murray's not the greatest thrower in the world, but he's pretty damn good. When you give a quarterback that much time, they're going to take advantage of you. And we literally have historically the worst pass defense in the history of the NFL through 6 games. It's just, there's no disputed facts there. That's just the way it is. And I think a lot of it, I'm not going to say all of it, because our pass defenders are obviously just very poor. But our pass rush or lack thereof is the root cause of I
Mm-hmm.
believe, all the things that are going wrong right now with the defense. And there's a
Yeah,
lot of stuff.
and I would agree.
You know,
Now they stopped the run really well. Kenyon Drake did not get going. They did a great job of keeping
I
him
don't even know
bottled
why
up
you would
and
run the ball
playing.
against the Seahawks when you can throw it at will.
Yeah, and so
Crazy.
I think they did that okay, but you know, they threw it almost 50 times. Why? One, because they were down, and two, because why wouldn't you? The defense is bad. And you know, this is the worst defense in the league right now. And I don't think it's disputable. I mean, they're just not playing good football. And there's more talent here than that suggests. Like, yeah, they're missing pass rushers, but they're not getting what they should out of the rest of the talent on the defense. And that's why I think you have to consider that Ken Norton Jr. is got to be considered part of the problem. I mean, and I'm not the only one saying it. You're not the only one saying it. It's not just a Twitter thing where it's guys that are complaining for the sake of complaining, right? The local Seattle media has even been like,
Seattle, you know, Pete Carroll's getting asked that question specifically, and he came to the defense of Ken Norton Jr. Said, "Hey, listen, I'm right there. I'm right in those meetings. We're talking about the strategy together. We're working on this as a team." You know, yada yada yada. And nonetheless, Ken Norton makes the calls on the field on game day. And they didn't get any pressure. They didn't dial up any real blitzes that I could see. Maybe one, two, a couple of them, you know, now and again.
Yeah.
They rushed Griffin a few times, completely ineffective. I watched him like on a couple different series, just singled him out. And I'm sorry, but he's not going to be the answer. He's just not, doesn't have any pass moves and gets washed out and shows his weight. Doesn't use his speed to his advantage at all. It's just, it's perplexing, you know, and as a result, Seattle's defense has allowed the most yards in NFL history through 6 games.
I think they are, this week are going to get an upgrade at that spot. I think Griffin's time as a person getting regular snaps on the defense is going to decrease because it appears that Michael Kendricks is going to get activated off the practice squad this week and will come back in. And he, you know, you look at 2 years ago, he was great as a pass rusher in that role of playing, you know, part-time linebacker, part-time pass rusher. And I think he's going to get those pass rushing snaps, and those snaps they're going to come at Griffin's expense. So, and then you know Jordan Brooks was out there; he was playing, and
I thought he did fine.
I thought he did fine too, but I don't know if they used him in a way that would have that took advantage of the fact that he has some serious speed,
does,
and against a team that has some serious speed. And that, you know, the Seahawks were having a hard time matching up against. I don't think they used him to the
I think
best
as the season goes on, you might see more of that. It's just one of those deals where I think they're having him play in sort of a base situation where he's not being asked to do a tremendous amount right now. That's up and beyond.
Yeah, they're just trying to keep it simple.
The other good news, and we might as well talk about injuries since we're talking about him. Rasheem Green is slated to return to practice this week, possibly, according to Pete Carroll, and play this next weekend. So there's a little bit of help on one of the edges. He's more of a base edge defender, but he does give you a little bit more upside as far as being able to get to the quarterback. I think 3 or 4 sacks last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has more upside. I mean, okay, first of all, 3 or 4 sacks, but that was as Clowney's backup. Right, so this wasn't a guy that was getting.
He was getting about 25% of the snaps last year.
And so you know that's reasonable, and basically he's going to come in and be a nice upgrade over the Bullard and Devontae Moore slots at the 5 tech, and so he's going to be able to back up Collier and give them a more talented person behind Collier running the pass rush on that spot. So That's going to be an improvement. We know Snacks Harrison's coming in at defensive tackle. That's going to be improvement. And Michael Kendricks coming in at linebacker, upgrading over Keem Griffin, appears to be
unfortunately
a chance for improvement.
Unfortunately, it sounds like Shaquille Griffin is in concussion protocol and has a hammy injury. So it seems like he's likely out at this point, but it's early in the week. We're still going to find out there. But if that's the case, your favorite defensive back, Trey Flowers, is going to get the nod again over on the opposite side. Or Dunbar's going to switch or whatever.
One of the things they did in this game when Griffin went out was they moved Dunbar over into Griffin's spot and let Flowers play his normal spot. And I thought the move helped. Like, Dunbar played well over there. Like,
Dunbar played pretty well this game.
When he was over on the left side, I thought he did better than when he was on the right. And I don't know if that's a thing or if it's just because of lineups and matchups and all of that. But I liked him over there. I just don't know if having Flowers.
It's at the end of the half though, when we were up 20-7, the end of the first half with 1:14 to go, Arizona drives 75 yards though on 2 blown coverages, and a completion for a TD. And those 2 blown coverages covered 64 yards. So out of the 75 yards they needed to go, it was reminiscent of that freaking Atlanta game, but it was Dunbar that was the guy that kind of got caught coming up and then allowing a player to get behind him. So it's just one of those deals.
On one of those plays, he actually had really good coverage, but it just happened to be, Nuke Hopkins in the corner.
That's exactly right.
And there are times when it doesn't matter how good your coverage is.
Yeah.
That Nuke Hopkins is going to beat you. And that was one of them. I mean, I would have liked him to make a stronger play on the ball, but he was there. He was in position, and, Hopkins made a play. So
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's hard to figure out exactly what's going on with the defense. And the only thing I can really point it to is the most consistent thing that's going wrong with the defense. And that's the lack of defensive line penetration and altering of plays. It's just not happening. And so your defense, your remaining defense, your linebackers, your safeties, and your defensive backs are being asked to do too much in this Pete Carroll scheme. And in addition, I'm just not exactly sure, in addition to just the defensive line being deficient, I'm just not exactly sure if we have the right players, the right skill sets to play in this scheme, or conversely, if Ken Norton Jr. is optimizing the talent that we do have. It's just really hard to identify. I can only trust that Carroll and company are in that film room trying to do everything they possibly can to put players in the right position. Historically, they've done that. So I don't know exactly what's happening right now. It's either a major talent deficit and we're elevating our players more than we should, and they're just really bad and we should just call it the way we see it on the field, or something else is happening structurally that is getting in the way of players being able to play without having to think too much. Maybe the playing speed right now is just not up to snuff or something. I don't know, Keith. It's hard for me. I don't get it.
I'm just saying they're in a situation right now that clearly it's not working. Can we try something that...
And that was supposed to be the deal in the bye week. Pete Carroll went into the bye week press conference and said, hey, this is our week. We're going to take the time to evaluate everything. We're going to look at everything. We're going to, make some changes if we need to make changes, blah, blah, blah. And they came out and they laid an egg again.
Well, and what changes did they make?
Nothing. Really, nothing.
Honestly, what changes did they make? They came out and did the same thing they've been doing.
Yes.
They made no changes. There was no schematic changes. There were no personnel changes. They did the same thing that's been failing for 5 weeks. They did it again, and they lost again. And this is why I'm going to continue to say that I think it's a Ken Norton Jr. problem. And yes, Pete Carroll's going to take some of the blame himself, and he's going to try and deflect and all of that. But Pete Carroll's not calling the plays. He's not setting this stuff up. I mean, Is he in the meetings? Sure, he's in the meetings, but he's not running the meeting. Ken Norton Jr. is running the meeting, and all of that. So it's just a problem. And honestly, there is the perfect candidate to come in as a consultant and help, sitting out there unemployed. I'm just waiting. Just do it. Go, bring him in. Go grab Quinn and bring him in and call him a consultant, this year or whatnot, and let him help. His job will be to help Ken Norton Jr.
Another set of eyes,
be better at his
whatever.
job.
So, this week will be good because other than Griffin possibly going through the concussion stuff and the hammy thing, it looks like we're going to be fairly full strength on the defense. We're getting a key addition and a guy we've never had in Snacks Harrison. I think that in itself in the middle there will be significant. Now, how significant? I'm not exactly sure. It depends on his conditioning and how he integrates into the defense and so forth. But it has the potential to be a real problem for offenses to contain him. And then Jamal Adams coming back. Now, I haven't heard for sure about Jamal Adams, but he is pointing to a return this week, and it's just going to be up to that groin to not get aggravated during the week's practice, and he'll be back. Let's talk about the other players too. Chris Carson went out after I think about midway through the second quarter.
He only had 5 runs in the entire game.
He had a foot injury. It's called a mid-foot sprain. He's week to week, so that looks like he's probably going to miss 1 or 2 weeks. Homer's got some sort of a knee bruise. Not exactly sure how serious that is. Haven't heard anything about him being out long-term, short-term, or otherwise. Something to keep an eye on. Carlos Hyde has a hamstring tightness that they're monitoring. So Chris Carson, Homer, and Hyde could all be out.
Limited or out.
During this game, and that gives maybe DJ Dallas an opportunity to carry some load here.
DJ Dallas had a couple of good plays in there. He had a one-handed snag in the passing game that honestly I did not believe he was going to catch. He reached out and grabbed it and then turned it upfield for 9 yards, and I was pretty impressed with that. And then there was another play where he was in pass protection, and you could tell that he was told where to go as far as pass protection. Like he knew that he needed to go from Wilson's right side where he was lined up to the left and pick up a blitz. But the 49ers changed their blitz and guys dropped out and other guys came that didn't. And so he went over there to block and there was no one to block, and then tried to get back to the middle to pick up a blitzing linebacker in the middle and didn't get there. And so Wilson ended up I think taking a sack. It was in overtime, but it was pretty close. It was pretty good recognition for a rookie who, the line call, the blocking call of where he was supposed to be and who he was supposed to block was wrong, and he almost made the adjustment and came back and got the guy anyway. And you don't normally see any backs have that kind of recognition, and for a rookie, that was pretty impressive. It would have been more impressive had he actually made the block, but he took one extra step towards the guy he was supposed to block that didn't come and wasn't able to. But still, he had the recognition to see what was going on and try and get back.
Yeah.
So there's some tape on him that's been pretty positive. He just hasn't really gotten an opportunity, and it looks like Carson's going to be out. Hyde we don't know about, but has already missed a lot of time this year. And so that leaves him and Homer. And if Homer can't go,
they do have Patrick Carr on the practice squad. But other than that they're going to have to pick up somebody off the street. And at this late in this situation with COVID-19, Patrick Carr could be activated off the practice squad for this game.
Yep. And if Patrick Carr is activated, you will see someone like Hyde or Homer, or maybe even Carson end up on injured reserve. And they might just do that and stick Carson over on injured reserve for, knowing that if he's going to be week to week, if he's going to miss 3 weeks, he gets stuck on IR. And so then maybe they can let him get healthy and then bring him back. And then, but they're going to have to create a roster spot. So
And
somebody's
that just
going to
happens so quick in the NFL. Three guys out in 1 week, and it just changes the entire dynamic of your position group. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then Penny, here's the situation with Penny. So he had the ACL last December. It's almost been a year. He went on IR to start the year, physically unable to perform. He's available at this point to be able to return to the team, return to practice, and there's still yet no word on where he's at.
He has not been cleared to play. He has been not been cleared to practice. He's not out there. I mean, he's out there putting in work and everything, but
he's running in a straight line.
Yeah, and that's what he said. He's in shape. He's or as in shape as you can be in this situation, but he's running in straight lines. He's not cutting. He's not turning. He's not putting a lot of force on that knee, and it's just not there yet. And that means he's probably a month away,
at least.
Yeah. I mean,
and you can say the same thing with Darrell Taylor. Taylor's running in a straight line as well, but it's a lot different when you're putting torque on that leg. We'll see. Mm-hmm. Rasheem Green, we talked about possibly coming back this week and playing against the 49ers. Jamal Adams, same thing, possibly coming back this week and playing, but there's no definitive word yet. Pete Carroll said it would be later in the week before they made the final determination there. That's it on the injury front. Seems like everyone else is available and should be ready to go. No other major injuries out of that game.
One of the things that I think has been kind of an underrated impact of what's going on is Mike Lupati's been out, and Simmons has been playing at left guard and is got he has the team's best pass block efficiency rate.
It is true. You are correct.
Better than Posick, who's number 2.
Better than Dwayne.
Yeah, who's number 3. But yeah, he's been.
He's top 10. He's top 10 in the NFL. Which is crazy.
So he's been. I know people were saying like, "Oh, he hasn't been good." Pro Football Focus has him rated really badly, and I'm just like, "No, that's not true." And you know what? People are starting to catch up with what the tape really says, and that's he's been good. He's been better than Lupati.
Well, that's certainly a bright spot this year. Is not only the starting offensive line, but the reserves as well. Just getting the job done this year, which is enabling Russell Wilson to have the kind of year that he is having. So, hey,
Shell's been
excellent. The best free agent acquisition, you might even argue.
Yeah.
Which is nuts. I mean, I would have not said that out loud 3 months ago.
But yeah, Shell's been good. Lewis has been a pleasant surprise there at right guard. Mm-hmm. We knew he was going to be.
He's going to be a great long-term solution. Making a few mistakes now and again, but
he is.
In fact, I'm worried about him a little bit. He lays on the turf a little bit too much for me. Now he comes back in, but I hate it when he looks like he's really injured on the ground. And I've seen that happen a couple times this year so far. I want him to stay upright for sure. Hey, I was going to talk to you about this whole defensive line thing, and before we put it completely to bed, there's been a lot of talk today, especially with Griffin being up on the market from Dallas, and we missed out on that, obviously. But there's just been a lot of speculation and talk about the Seahawks going out and trying to find somebody to add to this situation that will help make them better. I think everyone really recognizes the fact that Seattle has a wide open window for the Super Bowl this year, and Russell Wilson's having a special year in the offense. But the only thing really holding this team back right now is the inability to get to the opposing team's quarterback. So teams are speculating that they're offering their players out there available for trade and so forth, and what are the asset value and acquisition costs and so forth. I'll tell you though, right now, Field Yates from ESPN put out a tweet this afternoon with the current cap space available for all 32 teams. Seattle is ranked dead last, number 32, with $1.3 million in available cap space. So that really does change things.
It
does a little bit, Keith.
It doesn't, because all you do.
Well, they rework some stuff. They can rework some Russell Wilson stuff around. I get that.
Yeah, if you need an extra $1 million to get a guy, you call Wilson's agents and go, hey, can we move a couple $1 million from?
Or you give KJ Wright a 1-year extension.
Yeah, or actually, and talk about a guy who deserves it. But that one I think might have to be negotiated with Wilson. You're like, hey, we're going to take $3 million of your current deal, and instead of giving it to you a salary, we're going to make it a signing bonus. So you're going to get it now instead of spread out over the rest of the games for the rest of the year. And he goes, okay, sign it, done. Now they have the cap space they need to make a move. It's not a thing.
So cap space, let's collectively not worry about that then for now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a couple players out there. So Carlos Dunlap has been rumored to be available. He's unhappy. He's asked for some movement from his team. A guy like Ryan Kerrigan out of the Washington Football Club. Assets that we've got maybe on our team that would help facilitate a trade, not just draft picks. You've got a guy sitting out there like Hollister. When we've got Parkinson maybe coming back and available. You got a guy like Finney, who was a starting caliber, has got a reputation from Pittsburgh, but in the offseason, he might have some trade value for a team that really needs some help. Cody Barton, I was thinking. Cody Barton maybe have a surplus guy now that we've got Kendricks back in. Team maybe is looking at Barton as got more of a reserve guy as opposed to a future starter. A guy like DJ Reed, who hasn't played it down for the Seahawks, but might be a guy that's coveted out there if he's ready to go as being kind of a slot cover guy. And maybe Trey Flowers, guy that's really struggling in Seattle, but has a lot of upside as a long corner with a lot of starting experience. Those are guys that you could throw into trades.
He's also a guy that when you look at the breakdown of how he plays zone versus man coverage, he's a pretty good man cover guy. He's a pretty bad zone cover guy. And the Seahawks play a ton of zone. And so that has a lot to do with why he's been bad. Keith. And so to get him into a situation where he's like maybe going to Denver and play for a team that has that runs a lot of man coverage.
Yeah, he's a great press guy. He's a physical big guy.
Or Baltimore or that kind of thing. Find a way to make it work. Guys to keep an eye on for coming to Seattle in that kind of thing. Think about Tack McKinley in Atlanta as a guy that young guy on a rookie deal. Keep an eye on as a possibility. Yep, young guy, rookie deal almost over. So he's going to be available. They're going to have to rebuild in Atlanta. They're a mess, and being able to get some assets for him.
And he's like having Hollister, kind of a year as well. I mean, he's not having a great outstanding year. It's the final year of a rookie deal. So.
But if you can get a guy like that, trading away like Hollister or giving them Barton, who's a young, athletic guy that can play, a future draft pick, maybe not even one next year, but the year after. But give them some young guys that they can use as assets that'll be with them next year, and let them get some money off the books, and a guy that's probably going to kind of leave at the end of the season anyway, and so.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking about Seattle throwing players in because of the cap space. But you said, we'll massage the numbers, whatever, to make it work. I was just thinking if we threw in a player, that would help with that as well.
Oh yeah, like if you can trade Finney and his $2.3 million.
I think it's $4 million granted, first year. So whatever's remaining.
But the year's 6 games in.
That's true, but he does. It was a $8.5 million 2-year deal. So yeah.
So it's just the first third of the year is already gone on this year. So a third of this year's salary still counts against Seattle, even if they trade him. But yeah, if you can trade him and get, I think it's like $2.3 million left on the deal for this year.
Gotcha.
That's enough to bring someone in.
Yeah. And anyone that's not, he's not even suiting up. Get a guy that's going to suit up and rush the passer for you. Let's make that trade right now. Okay, so I just want to kind of throw that out there. So coming up, Keith, let's turn our attention to the San Francisco 49ers. This is a team that was and has been decimated by injury throughout this year, and kind of the favorite to repeat and win the division at the beginning of the year. They are 4-3. They've improved. They won their last 2 games. They won against the Rams, 24-16. Limited the Rams offense to 16 points. The Patriots, 33-6, limited the Patriots to 6 points, had 4 interceptions against Cam Newton.
Cam Newton played
terrible, right? Game. Terrible, but nonetheless.
Did you watch any of that?
I did
game?
Not, but
this wasn't a lot of this wasn't they were forcing Cam into mistakes. It was Cam dropping back into coverage and throwing the ball to people in white shirts. It was just, he played terribly. I think maybe he needed another week on the COVID list. It is
interesting though, because I thought for sure the 49ers were going down in flames this year after they lost 43-17 at home to the Miami Dolphins, and they were 2-3 at that point. I thought the season was going to be mailed in, and they were going to shut guys down, and they had benched Garoppolo in the second half of a game, and the whole thing I thought was just going to implode. All of a sudden, they win 2 games, they're back in it. Now they're talking about maybe creeping up and sneaking up and winning this division, because the division itself is just so difficult. There is always a window for a team like this to sneak in and grab that. There's no question. But out of the Rams and the Cardinals and the 49ers and the Seahawks, who's the weakest team? And you almost have to look at the 49ers just from the sheer standpoint of the injury situation. They've got Sherman, Quan Alexander, Nick Bosa's out for the year. Jimmy Ward's been out. Taquisti Tarrant is out with a groin. D Ford has been out almost all year. Mostert is out now all year. Coleman, Tevin Coleman, their second running back, is out. Jeff Wilson, their third running back, is out. Deebo Samuel's been out, and then he was back this last game. Now he's out again, back on injured reserve. This defense is still very solid, though. Even with all the injuries, their secondary is somewhat underrated. They're still getting to the quarterback, putting pressure on teams, limiting teams, at least on points and on paper, they're doing a pretty decent job. Their offense kind of does just enough. Garoppolo's kind of the guy. You're not going to put him with the game on the line at the end to go get a win, but he's a guy that's going to be able to march the ball down the field for the most part and take care of a team in that respect. So how do you look at Seattle, the way that they approach this game, responding after a disappointing loss, 49ers coming in with 2 straight wins? How do you see it?
Well, I think in this one, a lot of it, there were just points in the game where people were they didn't seem to be mentally in it. They were just making dumb mistakes. There wasn't the attention to detail and everything. And I think that a loss fixes that.
Do you think some of that's coming off of a bye?
Some of it's coming off of a bye and some of it's coming off of 5-0. And I think they were believing their own hype a little bit. And you end up starting to get some of that. And now you have a team that's going to be refocused. And you have a team that's going to be a lot more detail-oriented this week and ready to go. And I think that ultimately the talent difference between Seattle and San Francisco wins out for Seattle.
That's interesting that you would say that. You wouldn't have said that last year.
No, I wouldn't have said that prior, like in week 1, prior to all those injuries. But with their, a lot of their players offensively and defensively being out, there's a lot of talent on their injured reserve list. There's a lot of talent.
They're scoring points this year, and I don't think that Seattle's is in any position at all, regardless of who comes back or is available or whatever, to stop anybody. But the question is, are the 49ers in a position to stop Russell Wilson? Or is the only thing that's getting in Seattle's way is their own team, their own mistakes, if they should make them?
Yeah. Offensively, no one has stopped Seattle yet. The only stops that have happened against Seattle's offense has been Seattle mistakes. They've been, Wilson interceptions and more not breaking off a route right. And
one area that's concerning
like
to me with Seattle's offense is third down conversions. This year, Russell Wilson on third down is 17 of 38, 200 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, and 6 sacks taken. It's not great. And I don't know why. No. Every other aspect of that offense is pretty stellar, obviously. But for some reason, third down has just not been their thing. And they need to make it their thing because they need to overcome the defense. You know what I mean? It's like we need to do everything possible to keep the ball away from the defense. And when the defense gives us opportunities, extra opportunities, occasionally they do make third down stops. We saw it against Arizona. They do make turnovers.
They get
turnovers and give the ball to Russell. We just need to take advantage every single time. I mean, or try to. We do a pretty decent job. I mean, our red zone conversion rate is sick, but there are a few different deficiencies that you could make a little better.
Yeah. And, but I just think that the 49ers have a decent defense. They don't have a great defense. And a decent defense against the way Seattle's offense is playing.
We just saw a decent defense.
Yeah.
And we killed them in the first half.
Well, yeah. And we killed them at other times in the second half too.
At will.
When they wanted to. And it was just, because even when Wilson had those, had his mistakes, and through the interceptions, one of them was on the 4-yard line. One of them was in the end zone.
Right. Yes. That's what makes it worse.
They'd already driven, down to get more points. And, they just, it just didn't, it was a whole collection of nonsense in this game. But, that was it. Arizona's defense isn't bad.
They were 8th ranked overall DVOA defense.
And they're not anymore because the Seahawks just ran them up and down.
Prior to last week. Yeah. Correct.
And, the 49ers coming into the year, I thought was going to be a really good defense. I didn't think they were going to be like special or anything, but I thought they were going to be, 8th, 7th in the league, something like that. But then, you lose Wilson and you lose all the defensive linemen that they've lost. And they're in trouble, like from a talent deficit point of view. They're well coached. They're well coordinated. They get put guys in position, but from a pure talent standpoint, I don't see them with the capability of challenging Wilson and this offense and really getting this team stopped. And so it comes down to, can Seattle's defense slow down Jimmy Garoppolo and company? And I think given the fact that they're going to be on their 4th-string running back, and they're missing Deebo Samuel, who's one of their better wide receivers, and it's not like Garoppolo is a superstar. He's a good, slightly above average guy, but he isn't like Wilson or, for that matter, the guy they just played. He's just not that level of talent. I just don't see how they're going to keep up. Now they're going to move the ball and they're going to score and they're going to do all that.
As long as we don't turn the ball over, I think we're fine.
Because Seattle's defense is bad. So I think they will be able to do some stuff, but they won't be able to do enough.
Listen, we haven't been able to keep teams from getting less than 400 yards against us. Not yet. I don't see how the 49ers, regardless of who they put out there, are going to be any different. They're going to get their 400 yards, and hopefully it doesn't translate into 30 points. If 400 yards for them turns into 20 points or 24 points, I think Seattle's fine, because I don't think Seattle's going to score any less than 30 points. Probably not against anybody this year, and including the Bills the following week. I just think that Seattle's just too much offensively for anybody. But it's the defense. It really is. And if there's just one turnover in there on the offense, or a mistake, or the defense is really, really bad and just gives up a ton of points, and they did against Arizona. Arizona scored 37 on them. If 49ers score 37 points on the Seahawks, we might have an issue. But for me, I think I'm looking at Seattle being the one that's scoring 37 points, 35, 37, 41, something like that, to the 49ers scoring where they normally score in the 24 range, 23, 24. And that's kind of my prediction. Seattle gets
that's
back
what I was
on
thinking.
track.
35-23, somewhere in there. I think that's a reasonable line for this game, just given, the Seahawks played. They weren't beat by a better team against Arizona. They just played terribly.
It's always hard,
Arizona stole away.
After you lose, regardless of how you lose, it's always hard to have perspective on the next game. It's like, okay, who are we? What are we? Are we going to get back to the way it was the previous 5 games, or are we the team that we just saw that lost? No, we're not the team that just lost. Typically, we're not. We are the team that kind of that gives up a lot of stuff, but our offense is so good typically. In Russell Wilson, you got to remember Russell Wilson doesn't throw 3 picks very often, and that really was the difference in this last game. Even regardless of all the defensive mistakes and the penalties and all that kind of stuff, Russell Wilson nearly carried the day regardless. But when Russell Wilson has his typical day of 350 yards, 3 or 4 touchdowns, and 0 or 1 turnovers, Seattle's going to win 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing is, it comes down to, honestly, I don't think they're stopping Russell Wilson, and I don't think he stops himself 2 games in a row.
No, well, nobody's going to want to come out and allow the 49ers to do well in this game. They seriously, somebody on that defense has got to have a chip on their shoulder, has got to say, this is not enough.
They're all going to.
This is enough. We need to step up and be a defense, and
it's easy to get lax when you're winning and you're winning and you're winning and you got your 5-0 and you're like, okay, yeah, we got this. We don't have to get stops as long as we get turnovers and, can force some field goals and whatever. But then you get out and you get beat. And now you're like, okay, now we're not winning. We didn't win, and we're still the worst defense in the NFL. I think the attitudes change. And I think the talent difference is between last week and this week's going to be a difference. I don't know if people understand. Snacks Harrison was an All-Pro a couple of years ago. He is a very, very good player. Jamal Adams was an All-Pro last year. He is an absolute game-changing difference maker. And
Michael Kendricks at this point, he wasn't great last year, but he was also put in a tough position most weeks. He's a better player right now than Jordan Brooks is, just from a pro level.
I don't know about that because I like Jordan
Brooks is very instinctive, Keith, at this point, but I don't know that he knows as much about being a pro that Kendricks does. That's all. But
I would say you're not replacing Jordan Brooks. You're replacing Shaquille Griffin as the.
So you think that's the role that he's going to have? He's just going to come in on passing downs?
I think he's going to be a guy that comes in on passing downs and does different things and moves around, and they play him in different spots. He's going to be in the Shaquille Griffin role, and he's going to be better at it because he's an upgrade over Griffin.
When did he get hurt last year? Was it early? I can't remember. Was it this time last year where he went out?
It was about this time last year when he went out. Because it was later
because
Barton got
spent the first half of the year being the worst tackler in the NFL, which scares me a little bit.
Which is why I think that Jordan Brooks is not up to lose his job. I think that you're going to see Cody Barton less, and you're going to see Ben Burke-Hervin maybe suddenly get an infected hangnail and end up on injured reserve. I don't know. I could see that being how the slot for that extra linebacker spot ends up being found. Because it speaks very poorly for both Griffin and Burke-Hervin that neither of them can find enough success defensively that they have to go out and get a guy like Kendricks to come in. So I think it's one of those guys is going to end up not on the roster because you're not going to carry 8 linebackers.
And it's telling to me when Ken Norton Jr. is the defensive coordinator. He's also one of the best linebackers to ever play the game. Is your linebacker guy, and you bring in guys like Barton and Burkervin under Ken Norton Jr. and they still can't. They're still not being able to make a difference. That's telling. Mm-hmm. So,
well, and I think Barton he hasn't been great. He hasn't been bad. I think that for some reason people are expecting him he's not making, Bobby Wagner level plays, so he must be terrible. And I don't know if that's fair to any person ever in the history of football. But he hasn't been bad. He hasn't been great. He hasn't been bad, but he's the 4th linebacker on the team or the 5th linebacker on the team.
So, I was just looking at the prediction stuff again that we did at the beginning of the year. I can't even believe how close this thing has come to happening. Well, not close. It's happened like the way that I've laid this out. And I don't even understand because it's my prediction stuff was, it's silly. It is what it is. It's just kind of fun, but
yep, you've predicted the first 6 games perfectly.
It's nuts. And it's kind of gone the way that I thought it would in my mind when I made the predictions. It's like I thought our offense would be good, our defense would struggle, and we would win these games, and then we would come back after the bye, and it just wouldn't quite line up for us against the Cardinals, and we always have a hard time against the Cardinals anyway, and it just worked out that way. But it's I predicted the next one is a win, so I want that definitely to happen. You predicted the win too, so let's go figure out a way to get it.
Yep, go get to 6-1. The Seahawks, despite the loss, are still in first place.
Exactly.
In the division. They're still the number 1 seed.
There's so much
NFC.
despair on Twitter right now with Seahawks fans. It's like, come on now. We lost. It's hard, I know, but pull yourself together, man.
They're still the best team in the NFC. They still got
even with the worst defense, we were the best team.
Yeah,
that's crazy?
That tells you just how good the offense is.
Yeah,
but they're also they've also got games against really bad teams like Washington,
but
Philadelphia,
that's later. We need to take care of these next 3.
Up.
I think.
I know, but you know what I'm saying though. Like you still have 4 pretty easy wins coming up with those games. You have these next 3, which are pretty
49ers,
49ers, Bills, and Rams.
Rams and Cardinals again.
Yep.
That's not a gimme.
A week ago, I said that they needed to go 3-2 over these 5 games. If they could go 3-2 over these 5 games, that would set themselves up because you're probably going 4-0 in those other games that I just mentioned. You go into the last 2 games with 49ers and the Rams saying, is this a 14-2 team, 14-2 team, 13-3 team? Like you're at that point trying to make sure to nail that first round bye, and that's how good you are.
I still think we could get to 4. I think we could get to 4 wins here if we get past this win, recovering from a loss, sometimes difficult. But if we can get the win here, I think that helps us. And the Bills, I don't know, the Bills have been dropping back. They don't look as good as they were just a few weeks ago. So I'm not so completely sure that they're going to win, even if it's in Buffalo. And then the Rams, the 49ers beat the Rams. If we can beat the 49ers, you get that edge, and then we ain't losing to the Cardinals again. It's just not going to happen.
It's going to be one of those things where the Seahawks I think they're going to make a statement in that.
One thing I wanted to ask you before we leave is what in the heck would it have taken in this last game to get DK Metcalf involved in the offense? I know that he had that one play at the very end where where Moore got called for holding, which was legit, unfortunately, on that play where they threw it out into the flat to DK. DK made a guy miss and then ran 45 or 50 yards in for a touchdown. That would have made a significant difference right there. How do we get DK involved against Patrick Peterson next time?
I think you do what you saw on that play. Is he's running deep on every play, and Peterson's not up on the line of scrimmage because you're not going to keep. I mean, even Patrick Peterson with his speed,
DK Metcalf ran like 22.65 miles an hour again, hunting down Budda Baker on that interception return.
Yeah, it was one of the fastest speeds recorded in the NFL since they started tracking,
which is unreal. I mean, that play, that's going to that's going to be replayed over and over for a long time as a hustle play in the NFL for sure. Okay, so let's see if we can get DK involved in this next game, because Tyler Lockett caught like 3 games worth. So now it's DK's turn, right? That was
well, yeah. I mean, like you look at, we were talking before the bye about how, the Lockett hasn't shown up as much. That's and it's been true. DK's thing and whatever. And then in this game, they put Patrick Peterson, their best corner, on DK Metcalf. They rolled a safety over to help him. So Metcalf was double covered on almost every play. And what happened? Lockett went insane with 15 catches and 200 yards.
And he could have had a few more catches too, just had a few different little drops, but nuts. All right. Got to get out of here. Follow Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. I'm at NW Seahawk. The show is at Hawks Playbook. Seahawksplaybook.com is your source for all the shows. And find us on your favorite podcast app too. Podbean, Google Podcasts, Apple, etc. Go on there and subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. That way, every week, no matter what, that show ends up in your podcast feed, and you can listen to every episode. We're on 196, approaching 200 straight weeks we've recorded a show, so we're pretty proud of that.
Yep, 196 straight weeks without missing one.
I know, awesome, and no crazy intent to stop anytime soon. So
none whatsoever.
Let's go get them against the 49ers this weekend. So until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.